Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening, everybody. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Good evening, everybody. Alhamdulillah, 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 alhamdulillah. We are back. Assalamu alaikum, Abu Isa. May Allah Ta'ala make your trips safe. Alhamdulillah, the brother is working real hard. Okay, so let's jump straight in because I'm going to try to make this stuff. We're going to try to get it crunched all the way down. Inshallah Ta'ala. So we picked back up. We took a little break. We did part one of the true AQEEDAH of the SALAF. Wa alaykum salam wa rahmatullah. We did the part one of the true AQEEDAH of the SALAF. AQEEDAH, we mean in belief and fiqh. Fiqh is your everyday practice, your worship, and AQEEDAH is what you believe, the details to what we believe as Muslims. So, inshallah ta'ala. Technical difficulties. Okay. All right. So, just to go through an overview of the first one. Huh? Why? Why? Go tell Terrell he had it work. We had the overview of the first episode of this. We covered that the Quran was revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one thing about that too, it had always existed. The Quran was eternal. It is eternal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it was revealed. It wasn't made. It wasn't created. It wasn't written at that moment. None of that. So it was with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it was revealed to Angel Gabriel. Angel Gabriel gave it to Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, and the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam gave the Quran to the Sahaba, his companions, and they numbered in the tens of thousands. I've even seen some people said the hundreds of thousands, but I know for sure the tens of thousands. So just paint a picture in your head, if you can, the angel Gabriel coming down and reciting the beautiful, melodious sound of the Quran that we know to the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu salam. The Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, he memorized whatever angel Gabriel alayhi salam gave him. He gave it to the Sahaba. The Sahaba themselves also took after the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, and they memorized it as well, exactly how it was given. Nobody differed. So fast forward through that. Also, we covered that from the evidence in the Quran that it was revealed, not revealed, that the Prophet ﷺ did not speak from his nafs. This was not his great and grand idea. This was not the benefit of him studying for 50 years in college and him getting a PhD or any of the such. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ could not even read or write, let alone write a book of divinity of perfect divine truth, and to be able to convey it in such a scholarly, over a scholarly manner. So, fast forward, we are at the level of the companions, the Sahaba. So this is all important to understand before you get into your study of Aqidah or your study of fiqh. This is important to understand. This is important to understand because you have to have validity in your heart and in your mind that this came from the creator of the universe. this came from Allah, that this came from the Almighty. Excuse me. Sorry, kids. Yeah, go to bed. so, uh, so it we at the level of the Sahaba, the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, giving the Quran and the explanation and its tafsir, its commentary, the Sunnah, the way, the practice, how he did everything. He gave that to his companions. His companions were there as witnesses to everything that happened. This is something else that's miraculous, that belongs only to our way of life. Nobody else can claim this but us. So um, let's get into the technical aspects of this. So we are all in a frenzy about AQEEDAH and fiqh. We all in a frenzy about what we believe and how we actually practice it. We all are. Everybody is everybody is arguing and fussing and fighting about this. So the way that we can sort all of this out is through this understanding, what we're going through, what we're covering in this video. So at the companion level, they continued the practice and the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and they passed it on, i.e., transmitted it to the tabi'een. These were the followers of the companions. And then they passed it on to their followers. This is, like we mentioned in the first video, this is within that three blessed generations. The Prophet Muhammad SAW prophesied that there'd be three blessed generations that will come after him. Fast forwarding, what we have been able to access, what we have been able to learn, comes from what we covered again in the first video, the time of the Salaf and the time of the Khalaf. The Salaf being our predecessors, and the Khalaf being the successors to the predecessors. So the predecessors being the people who came before us, the tabi'een, the tabi'een, and the ashab. They all are in their own category. So the hay of the day, everybody is trying to connect themselves, or should be trying to connect themselves to that time period, that blessed three generations. Some people, a group of people at that, say that those three just blessed generations are the Salaf, but not in a technical sense, because we already have a name for that three for the three generations that are in that prophecy. We already have names for them, so I don't think it'll be appropriate for us to rename them. But accurately, if we say that the Salaf is those people that came right after those three generations, I think we could be more accurate with that. And that's really how the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, that's really how they touch that issue. So the Salaf and the Khalaf, the things that we have to be to learn as our deen comes from the Salaf and the Khalaf. And from our time period all the way back to the time of the Salaf and the Khalaf is a very long time. Things just kind of all the way unraveled. So we have to cling to those generations, and we have some good, very, very good people even after the Khalaf. In the first video, I think we said we went all the way up to like the 9th century, and like 1,000 years after the Prophet Muhammad SAW. The Islamic educational system was very sturdy. It was very authentic. It was very strong. It was very trustworthy. It wasn't probably until about the 17th century when we not 17th, well, in the American years or Western years, but in Hijra probably wasn't until about 1200 years, 1300 years after the Prophet ﷺ, when everything just kind of just got buck wild. So how do we avoid that? And that's what this series, this mini series about the Aqidah of the Salaf is actually about, is how we can sift our way through all these groups, all these names, all of the cacophony that we hear when we're trying to practice our Islam. We got this group pulling us this way, this group pulling us this way. We got groups pulling on us from every direction. How do you navigate yourself through all of this cacophony? Uh, we look at what the Khalaf and the Salaf has. This is how we guide ourselves through all of this madness. This is how we practice Islam according to the way of the Salaf. This is how we do it. We look at the actual Khalaf and the actual Salaf. So if you look at those good scholars, like the big names, let's say Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, Ibn Rajab, Imam Nawawi, these were all ladder, Tajuddin of Subki. These were all ladder day scholars. They were scholars in every right of the definition, but they come way after. Those guys even actually help connect us to that time period of the Khalaf and the Salaf, and we can even argue that they were part of the time period of the Khalaf. We can even argue that, but how so that's the first thing that we must understand. So let's get into some details, some minor details of who this generation of Salaf and this generation of Khalaf is and could be. So we all heard of the four Imams. If anybody's following me on Facebook, y'all know I post about them all day, every day. We heard about these four Imams. Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahumullah, Imam Malik, Ibn Anas, Imam Muhammad Idris al-Shafi'i, and Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahmatullah alayhim. All four of those guys. So these guys are like giants. They were really big giants, and they called those giants in Islamic scholarship. They call those giants mujtahideen or mujtahidun, or singular a mujtahid. What is a mujtahid? A mujtahid is a person who has mastered the educational sciences, all the different categories of educational science in Islam. They are masters of Arabic, the Arabic syntax and lingo at the time of the Prophet. Not only his dialect and the lugha, the what you call it, the not slang, but the words that they used at that time. Not only are they a master of that, but they're a master of the scholarly Arabic that was used. So you can kind of break that into three categories. That's just my personal opinion from my observation and studies. You have the actual dialect that the Prophet he knew all of the dialects, but the actual one that was birthed to him, that he used, that that him and the Makki people that they use. Then you have that the lingo. You know how we have slang. Let's just say the word slang. You got the slang. You got the slang that was in usage at the time period of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu salam. And then you have the scholarly syntax of Arabic dialect during the time of the Prophet alayhi salatu salam. And I don't know if it was Imam Malik or even or Imam Shafi'i who said that nobody has mastered Arabic to that stand, like in their time. And so if they said that in their time, then it's definitely a wrap for us. So so Mujtahid is perfect in that. Mujtahid is he's perfect in the sciences of hadith. He's perfect in the sciences of fiqh. He's perfect in history of Islam. He's perfect in what abrogates. He's perfect in what has been abrogated. What stands, what doesn't stand anymore. All of these various sciences, every type of science that you can think of. He's a master in one of the, if arguably, if you ask me, it's the hardest science of Islamic science, which is usul. He's a master of usul. Excuse me. And for all those people who don't know what usul is just to be very, very, very succinct. Usul is style. It's the style of teaching and application of the deen. Let's put it like that. Let's just put it like that. Certain rulings in Islam, certain rulings come about, right? So you got a situation, and what's the ruling on the situation? And a particular imam or mujtahid would give you a ruling for a particular situation, or any type of teaching, any type of guidance, any type of counseling, or anything like that. He has what we call an usul. That's his usul. That's its way. That's its way. That's his style of being a teacher. His method, his methodology on coming on giving you the guidance, the counseling, the teaching. That's his style. But what's so beautiful about Islam is that also is a divine teaching. All that also was included in the revelation of the Quran and the Sunnah, the usul. So that's also a divine thing. So you learn usuli principles in Islamic law on how to come about in making a particular ruling, or how a particular ruling was made. You learn the usul behind the method behind that. So that's a very complicated, but it's so beautiful once you learn it and understand it, and you could just see the divine light in that science. So a mujtahid is an individual who has mastered all of the Islamic educational sciences. And with the accumulation of his education, he formulated his own way. He formulated his own way. This is what we like to call a school. He formulated his own school. So these four imams were that. They were these absolute scholars. So no, they were not perfect. Not at all. They were not perfect at all. We do not believe that they were perfect. We got some people out there who try to slander us and make us believe, and try to make people believe that we believe that they are perfect. They are not, and they tell you all the time that they were not. And we have famous statements of them saying, that they don't know something, or that they were not perfect, and so on and so forth. So, but these guys were giants. So when you come, you got to come correct. You cannot come without being correct. These dudes were absolute giants when it comes to knowledge, education. So moving forward, I must mention this. There were other mujtahideen scholars. I must say that just for the record, because there's always be a naysayer and say, well, they weren't the only mujtahideen. I don't have to be confined to following just that one, or just because you say that there's four imams, I don't have to follow one of those four. I'll follow Imam al-Awza'i. Well, we got a problem with that. We got a problem with that. All of the other mujtahideen imams, we do not have their school. Their schools were not preserved. This is by the will and the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah ta'ala told us in the Quran that he was going to preserve his religion until the day of Qiyamah, and the only preservation of the deen, or our connection to the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu is in the four schools. Nobody else has any type of change. Wa alaykum salam wa rahmatullah. Nobody else has any established connection back to the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Nobody. I don't care what they say. They can't prove it. They will never be able to prove it. So that moves me over into the next point. These names, these four imams, these names. So you'll find different groups that challenge these four imams. You'll find different groups that challenge individuals confining themselves to one of these four imams. Now, mind you, the four imams are the only ones whose schools, the only mujtahideen whose schools have been preserved. We don't have the other mujtahid imams. The Sahaba, some of them were mujtahidun, not all of them. All of them were knowledgeable, but some of them were actual, mujtahidun, like Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Those are two big, huge names. Let's just stick with those two big, huge names. They were mujtahidun. They knew a lot of fiqh. They knew a lot of they mastered all of those sciences, and they were some of the few, like even Ali ibn Abi Talib, radiallahu ta'ala anhum, all of them, like they used to give fatwa to the other Sahaba. So they did have different levels of understanding during the time of the Sahaba. But so their methodology, the Sahaba's methodology is not gone because it's preserved within the four schools. I'm saying in the time of the Salaf and the Khalaf, the other mujtahideen, and there might have been some other mujtahidun, after the Salaf and the Khalaf, none of them have been preserved. The only ones that have been preserved are those four: Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, and Imam Ahmad. So if you want Islam, it's got to be through these four. There is no other road. These four are the highway, and each of the four is a lane on that same highway of the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, of the way to the Prophet alayhi salatu salam. There is no other way. No other way exists. No other connection exists. And as a matter of fact, every scholar that came after them, every certified scholar that came after them had the name of one of those scholars behind their name, or they associated themselves with one of those names. Every one of them. Even our acclaimed, our beloved Bukhari. Everybody loves Bukhari. Everybody say, don't. We got a group out there that says, don't follow or don't confine yourselves to the four schools. Just look at the hadiths. Go and buy you a set of Bukhari. Go. All right, hurry up. Go. Don't confine yourself to the four. Go and look at the Quran. Buy yourself. Hey, get him a pull up. Don't confine yourselves to the four. Follow any of the four, and the way that you can follow any of the four is you get the book called Bukhari, Sahih Bukhari, and you look at it and you read it, and then you make up your mind what you want to do. Let me remind you, this deen is divine. We established in the first video, it was given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Allah to his companions, their companions, their companions, and then it was just passed on in what we call a sanad, a chain of transmission. Y'all see me hooping and hollering about this all the time. All of the asanid, the sanad, the chains are preserved in the four schools. No chains exist outside of these four schools. Chains did exist outside of those four schools. Yes, chains did exist outside of them. The chains themselves, are the connection to the Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam. But there were other imams that gathered, that had the preservation of these chains or whatnot. So some of them we don't have. So, but the chains, the sanad, the asanid. Let's get an example, a small example of the evidence. Excuse me. Sorry. Let's get into the evidence of that statement. These four imams. and their chains. Let's get into the evidence. Give me 1 second. I'm looking at these hadiths. 1 second. Okay. All right. So chains. Uh, the best chains or links. One of the best chains belongs to Imam Malik, one of the four. Got to turn my camera back on. Excuse me. One of the chains, one of the imams, excuse me, not one of the chains, one of the imams of the four has one of the best chains. This is Imam Malik. This is the imam that I follow and the school that I belong to. Alhamdulillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala consider me a true follower of Imam Malik. So his chain, his connection to the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu salam. I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting for you. One of his chains. Sorry, I keep turning it off, y'all. My wife had to pass. She wasn't dressed. So she was dressed, just not covered in hijab. Sorry, I should have said that. Watch the views go up. Brother showing his wife on the internet. Don't take from him. It's like, nah. Okay. Back to the series. I would be laughing at shaitan. Evidence of the connection of the four imams. So I'm gonna use the first two as an example. I always like to use the first two. The last two are so they were all students one of another except the first two. The first two were contemporaries. They worked alongside of each other. Imam Malik was in Medina, was in the city of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and Imam Abu Hanifa was in Kufa. He was in Iraq, which was another Islamic city, Islamic territory at that time. It was the second. It was the second strongest Islamic stronghold of knowledge at that time and really forever. So um, let's just use those two. And then Shafi'i learned with Imam Malik, and Imam Ahmad learned with Shafi'i. So they all share a chain. Ahmad from Shafi'i, from Imam Malik, but they also collected other chains from other scholars, other hadith scholars, the hadith scholars are the narrators who had connections back to the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu salam. The first one, Imam Malik. So the best chain of all time, Imam Malik. It was from Imam Malik, from Nafi', from Abdullah ibn Umar. That's the best chain in Islamic education. We call this the Silsilatul Dhahabi, the Silsilatul Dhahab, the golden chain. This is a link. So I just told y'all who Malik was. He was a leader of the time of the Salaf. He took from a guy named Nafi', who was arguably a Sahabi or a Tabi'i, that second generation. And we could say that Ibn Umar was a Tabi'i or a Sahabi. This was Umar, who was absolutely a Sahabi. This is the Prophet Sallallahu right hand man. That was his son. So that's our connection to the deen. So Imam Malik, we say in Islamic education, we say that Imam Malik's school is the school of Umar. It's the madhab of Umar, because so many of Imam Malik's rulings and his usul and his way, his style and teaching was his connection, his plug was Umar. Umar's viewpoint of everything that he saw during the time of the Sahaba, during the time of the Prophet, alayhi, everything that he witnessed with his perspective and everything. And the Prophet even said that if there was going to be a prophet after him, it'd be Umar. So his whole purview, of course, it was transmitted to his son, and then his son transmitted. They had a freed slave. He was not a slave. He was a freed slave. So Nafi', they bought Nafi''s freedom. I'm not sure which Sahabi. I think it was Abu Bakr, if I'm not mistaken. But they bought Nafi'. He was a slave. They bought him and freed him, and Nafi' chose to stay. This is, because this was the divine, this was the divine situation. He recognized that this was the Prophet of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam. So Nafi' chose to stay. So this is who Nafi' is. So Nafi' was in the household and was around them, and even, he even, he participated in so many things. He was witness to the divinity. So this is the chain. You can't reject that. If you reject that, you reject Islam. This is the chain. This is the connection. When we say chain, we mean connection. That's an example. Another example, the second Imam Abu Hanifa. One of his chains, let me look it up. Make sure I got the right. Yeah, this is it. Okay. Okay, so another chain. This one was popular with Imam Abu Hanifa. He was the first of the Mujtahideen Imams. I should have did him first and then did Imam Malik, but I knew Imam Malik's chain off the top of my head. I do not know Abu Hanifa's off the top of my head. I'm looking at it. So one of his was Ibrahim al-Nakhai, who was Mujtahid Tabi'i, Alqama, who was a Sahabi, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, who was a big Sahabi. So, Alqama was a Tabi'i. Ibrahim al-Nakhai is argued, I think, if somebody can correct me, I think it was argued that he was a Tabi'i as well. But this is the connection. We have the connection. This is the name. One of the names that I mentioned earlier, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. This is the person who the Prophet ﷺ made du'a that he have tafhim of the Quran, that he has deep insight of the Quran, and everything. We know that everything that the Prophet ﷺ asked for, he got it. So there's two examples of chains, and the other two, it's the same exact situation. As the generations go on, the chains get a little bit longer. I wanted to touch on that. I'm not going to touch on that, but the chains get a little bit longer. They go, I don't think they go any more than 10 people, and all of the people in the chains are known. All of the people in the chains are known. They actually, like the Hadith scholar, it was a educational science that they would give the biographies of each narrator. What kind of geniuses were these guys? There's nothing like this in the history of the world. Nothing like this in the history of the world. Nothing like this. So we say so-and-so heard from so-and-so heard from so-and-so, and we have the biographies of all of those so-and-sos. And on top of that, icing on the cake, the first principle of hadith, learning ulum al-hadith, the first principle is that these individuals be just and upright and that they know each other. They must be just and upright. So you could not be a hadith narrator if you were not. You can have all the knowledge in the world, like a lot of these internet teachers and preachers. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you were not just and if you were not known for being just and known for being upright, you cannot transmit from the Prophet. Nobody would take your transmission. This is a miracle. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said he was going to preserve his deen, preserve his religion. This is what is at stake when we settle down and say we're going to learn our aqidah, our belief, and we're going to learn our fiqh. It's not just this optional course of studying like a college. It is not that. This is divine. All of it, all four of them. It is divine. And for an individual to opt out of the divinity, to opt out of that divinity, you are playing with your Islam. You're playing with your Islam. You have to associate yourself and submit yourself to one of those four. Why? Big question. This is the big question. So everybody arguing about on the internet. Why do you have to do that? Because, like I said before, you have to have a mujtahid. There has to be a mujtahid. There has to be. A mujtahid is an individual that has all of that knowledge. They've done all the research. They know who all of these narrators are, rather, and whatever generation that it was. If they were far away, if they were 800 years away from the Prophet ﷺ, and there were 10 people in there, and they're chained back to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, they know who each one of them is in that chain. They were known of, they were spoken of, they have that knowledge. All of the different wordings of the hadith, all of the sayings about one particular topic. At one point, the Prophet ﷺ said this. About another point, the Prophet ﷺ said that. 10 years later, the Prophet ﷺ said something different than this and that. They have that knowledge. We don't have that knowledge. It's not even possible for us to have that knowledge. For us to have that knowledge, we have to have muhaddis in existence. And we had the 18. We had a huge debate about this last week, and I think we concluded that there's no muhaddis on the planet right now. If there is, we don't know about them, which doesn't serve us any kind of purpose. It serves us no justice. They're getting the benefit from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They live somewhere out in the jungle. But the muhaddith is the person who has memorized everything about hadith. The narrators, the conditions of the hadith, the time periods of the hadith, whether the hadith is applicable, whether it's not applicable, all of this stuff. The four imams, the four mujtahideen, they did all that work for us, and it's codified. When they accomplished themselves as mujtahideen, they taught students. Those students became mujtahideen in the schools. They learned all of the principles in the particular schools, and then they codified it. When they codified it, they passed it on generation, and it's not changed. It's not changed. You have people. It's not the Quran. It's not the Quran. Even the Sunnah has some interpolation. But this is the thing about the interpolation, because we have naysayers out there like, oh, you trying to say that the hadith or Imam Malik or Imam Ibn Qasim was just like the Prophet ﷺ, that he was infallible and that his messages couldn't be broke. No, I'm not saying that. We have people that put anthropomorphic statements in some of our books. But you know what the difference is? Our books, the actual knowledge, that all has been preserved. We do have people that memorize this stuff, the fiqh. We do have people that memorize that. So when an interpolation comes along, we have generations. We don't have to just depend on this generation of the Hufaz or Faqih, the Hufaz of fiqh. We don't just have to depend on those ones. We can go back to every single generation, and we can look at even the chains that the Hufab have to each other and see what this Imam said in that generation, that Imam said in this generation. You can go back 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800, 900 years, and they all gonna say the same thing. Because going back to the beginning of this mini series, it was revealed and then it was transmitted through generations. This is not a game. This is the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the divine deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not a game. So the 4 imams are not just some optional college course that you can pick and choose. You can follow it, whichever one you want. But it's the Quran and Sunnah is not a college PhD course. You have to be associated somehow, some way to those 4 imams. No. You have to be associated to those 4 imams because the deen itself is codified within those 4. And like I said, let me push this understanding through. Their students, we have books that come from their students, and those books are preserved. We have them right here to this day. They are preserved. These books are our deen. These books are our deen. The books from the students of the 4 imams. Those books are our deen. Everything outside of that, I have no clue what it is and where it came from. But it didn't come from Allah and His messenger. Even people are using Quran, they're using Hadith, they're using statements of the scholars. That's just like taking the ingredients of pizza and trying to make chili. If you take the ingredients of pizza and you try to make a chili, you will never make chili. You're going to make pizza. And the pizza that these people are making is nasty. It's the worst pizza in the world. It's not even the kind of pizza that you would like to eat, let alone is it chili. No, it is not chili. So even though there's groups out there, one really loud group from Saudi Arabia, one really loud group, they take in the Quran, they take in the Hadith, but they mixing everything up. Everything is out of order. It's all out of order. This is tampering with the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You cannot do that. The greats before us preserved it in a particular manner. Who are you to change it? Who are you, no matter who you are, to say, hey, I have a book of Bukhari and I have the book of Ibn Majah, and I think this is the way that it should go. And here you are 1,500 years later. And then the individuals who were in the same generations, in those blessed generations that I just spoke about, they didn't even change it. They just transmitted it. They got it from somebody who got it from somebody who got it from somebody who got it from the Prophet. That's what the sanad is. That's what the chain is. Who are you to change it? So just because something has Quran and Sunnah, or it got a lot of Arabic writing on it, or the guy's really, really handsome, look like he's from Saudi Arabia, got a real nice beard, and he talk, he got a real good talk, and he got that, finger, that shake finger, all this stuff is smoke screen. Where is your connection to the Prophet? If you ain't part of those 4, you're a mujtahid. It's impossible for you to be a mujtahid. You're not a mujtahid. We don't have any established mujtahideen on the planet right now. So it would take a mujtahid to grade you to say, okay, yeah, he's a mujtahid. So if the scholars agree right now, the majority of them, some of them don't, but the majority of them say we don't have a mujtahid right now to this day. If we did have a mujtahid, everybody would have to follow him. We wouldn't be burdened with following Malik, Shafi'i, Abu Hanifa, and Ahmad. We could, but we wouldn't be burdened to. We would have our own for that day. We'd have our own Malik. We have our own Ahmad. We have our own Abu Hanifa, and we can follow him. But that's not possible. We don't have another one that was here or other ones that are here that could judge the person and say, okay, I'm a mujtahid. I've mastered all of the sciences of Islam, and then they could grade that person and say, okay, this person is a mujtahid. That stuff was happening in the golden era and ages that the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu prophesied. That's not happening today. So if we don't have if you're not connected with those four schools who contain all of the chains and the connections back to the Prophet ﷺ, you're not practicing Islam. This is the gist of fiqh. If your AQEEDAH is off, I even want to say this is my own opinion from my own observation, of my own expertise. And it really doesn't mean that much because I'm not the scholar of the scholars, but I study. I'm on it. And I've been on it for about 15 years now. I want to even warn people again. I want to warn people from not even grasping Islam completely. Because if you're Aqidah, because when you say Shahada, that's your belief system. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. You bearing witness that there's no God other than Allah, and that Muhammad is the Prophet, alayhi salatu, and he's the messenger, alayhi salatu salam. You bearing witness to that. You need that to be Muslim. It's not just words. It's not magic. It's not just words. When you say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, that's your Aqidah. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah, that's your Aqidah and your fiqh. This is your deen. You bearing witness to what? Don't bear witness to what? A person. You bearing witness to a person or a group or a movement or a phase. Bear witness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's your Aqidah. That's when we get into people saying stuff about Allah that Allah Ta'ala didn't say about himself, nor did anybody who ever transmitted all of these people I just told you about. They never said any of the stuff that we're saying today. That Allah sits on the throne. Allah is above the throne. They never said any of this stuff. You don't find it. You find that stuff recently from a group and from some people who did not and who do not have any connection to the Prophet alayhi salatu salam. They don't have any connection to the Salaf at all. I just proved to you all our connection. The people who are in the four madhahib, I just proved to you all our connection to the Prophet alayhi salam. So when we say Allah Ta'ala is not in any place whatsoever, we have evidence. This came out of our chains, our links. That came out of our links. Where's the proof for all these other people that's saying stuff that we never heard in 1,500 years of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu message being on the planet? And any of the scholars, any of these people that I mentioned, you don't hear it. There's one scholar we hear from, Ibn Taymiyyah, but he was a scholar in fiqh. He was not a scholar in Aqidah. He was not an authority in Aqidah. So we can't say, even though he was a scholar, We can't use him as the evidence and the proof in Aqidah, nor was he from the Salaf. He was not from the Salaf. He's even on record saying the things about his Aqidah is his idea. And I already told y'all, the Prophet ﷺ, in the Quran, it said that the Prophet ﷺ did not speak from his desire, let alone somebody else. I don't care who it is, even if it was a scholar, Ibn Taymiyyah. We don't attach ourselves to any person. We attach ourselves to the deen. And we can attach ourselves to people in the deen as long as they are in the deen. But when you find a person saying stuff that does not belong to our deen, you got to back up off of that. This is what is at stake when you are practicing, when you're doing your fiqh. I've met people who belong to all of these weird groups that they don't belong to a fiqh, which is the four schools. They don't belong to any of the fiqh. They cannot tell you how they make wudu. They cannot tell you how they make salah. And when I say how, I don't mean the prophet's prayer as if you've seen it. I'm not meaning that. That is not fiqh. That is not fiqh. What I mean when I say fiqh, when you're praying and you have to have a sutra, you have to have a barrier. What are the rules of that barrier? What are the rules of that sutra? What are the rules that say when you have to have a sutra? What is the way? What is the guidance in this matter? When you somewhere and you don't know where you are, I'm an individual that has been traveling lately. I've been in some places where I have no clue where I am or what direction it is or any of that. With the Qibla, how do I find the Qibla? You have to pray. How do you find your Qibla? If you playing around with these weird groups and they don't have a B, C, 1, 2, 3 of all of these things because they've disconnected themselves from the Prophet ﷺ and his Salaf, what are you practicing? You're just playing dress up. What are you actually practicing? You're falling into that category of people who have pizza ingredients and they say they're going to make chili. If you want to be a Muslim, that's supposed to purify you as a human being. You have to do that in a manner that was prescribed for you. You can't just go gung-ho and say, oh, I'm going to go to Bukhari and I'm going to look at the hadiths and I'm going to put this hadith about wudu right here and I'm going to do that. I'm going to take this hadith about salah right here and I'm going to do that. I'm a Muslim. That's not how it goes. And newsflash, Bukhari is not a fiqh book. It's a hadith book. Bukhari is not a fiqh book. It's a hadith book. It's got some fiqh in it. You would never know. Because you can, if you haven't been trained about that, especially if you're just one of those gung-ho peoples, if you haven't been trained in that, you ain't going to know which one is just the hadith and which one is a fiqh. Or what point is Bukhari trying to prove by having this hadith. If you go to the Bab al-Wudu, the chapter of wudu, how many hadiths you got in there? How many hadiths do you need for wudu? I got to wash my hands. I got to wash my elbows. I got to wash my mouth, my nose. I got to wash my face, wash my head, wash my arms up to my elbows and my ankles and my feet. How many hadiths do I need for that? Why are there so many hadiths? We never asked that question. So how do you know which hadith you're going to follow? You need a fiqh. In order to have a fiqh, you have to have a faqih. In order to have a faqih, you have to have a mujtahid. In order to have a mujtahid, you got to be one of the four. Because there are no other mujtahideen that exist. The people in Saudi Arabia, they are not mujtahideen. So, I'm going to wrap this up. We're right on time. Alhamdulillah. I don't see any comments. All in all, that is the end of this mini series on the history. This is just an outline, the history of AQEEDAH and the way of the Salaf. That is just so detailed. You could just be that can be a 10-part volume and series, which is not my intent. We have those scholars and those videos. When we get to that point, I can point y'all in the right direction. I'm just trying to get everybody in the right direction first. So that is our deen. That is the way. So when we say we're not going to subscribe to one of the four madhahib, you're checking out of Islam. I'm not saying that you're not a Muslim. I'm just saying you're checking out of Islam. You're putting yourself in a dangerous category. Because if our deen has been preserved, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised us, and the only preservation, the only true preservation of the sunnah, the asanid, the connections, the true connections to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam are only in those four, and then you outside of those four somewhere else, where are your chains? Where are your connections? Who is your connection? I mean, we can accept it, but we have to examine it first. You can't just tell us anything. You are in big trouble if you ain't following one of those 4 schools. If you paying your zakat every single year, how are you paying your zakat? What are the rules of the zakat? Are you eligible for zakat? Or are you eligible to pay zakat? Are you eligible to receive zakat? What are the rules that you are following for this? You can't just pick up a hadith book and figure that stuff out. That's not what hadith books are for. So people can stop saying, I follow the Quran and the Sunnah according to the way of the Salaf, and then I go to Amazon, I order Bukhari, Ibn Majah, Sahih Muslim, and all that. I don't even own. I study all day, every day. I don't even own those copies. I go and check them and reference them online when I need to. I don't even own them. I'm not a muhaddith. Now, I'm just now scratching the surface of learning about hadith. I don't. What do I need that for? I don't need that yet. I'm not even there yet. And I'm in a madhab, going through the curriculums of the madhab. And I ain't even concerned about opening up a hadith and being like, okay, this is what the Prophet said. This is that. This. That is a dangerous situation. And we should have taqwa. We should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not be arrogant. We should not be arrogant. We should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and examine yourself. Ask yourself, am I in line? That brother said those 4 imams that have the only connection to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Am I in line with that? And then there's going to be a brother that's going to say, oh, he don't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know the way of the Salaf. Oh, can you prove that, brother? Yes. See, if you go to Sahih Bukhari, let me break the news to you. Bukhari was a Shafi'i. He also followed one of those 4. And I don't even have to mention the other 6 hadith, the other 5, 6, the other 6 hadith collections. I don't have to mention them. Because none of them were heavier except for the Muwatta. We ain't going to count that. But none of them were heavier than Bukhari. We all agree on that. Bukhari himself was a Shafi'i follower he followed one of those 4 schools. So what is Shafi'i? What did Imam Shafi'i know that you don't know? Excuse me. What do you know that Imam Shafi'i don't know? Yep. I'm messing up. Excuse me. Na'udhu. What do you know that Imam Bukhari does not know that you don't have to follow a madhab? And he is your authority. When you say, oh, I'm not confined to one of the 4 schools because I follow only the Quran, I don't have to listen to Shafi'i because I'm listening to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How are you listening to the Prophet, brother? Well, here's the hadith in Bukhari right here. Well, Bukhari followed Shafi'i, brother, sister. There was a reason for that. And mind you, Sahih Bukhari is just a book. There's so many other works that Bukhari did. He even has a book on fiqh. I think it's in Arabic. None of y'all can read it. It's a collection of hadiths, of the best graded hadiths. You ain't gonna figure out, shoot from the hip, how you supposed to practice your deen by just picking up the Bukhari. And then what's so backwards is you saying, I don't confine myself to any one of the schools. I follow all of the schools, and I follow all of the best opinions of the schools as well. How in the world do you know what the best opinions of all the schools are? You don't even know the opinions of the schools. That's enough for tonight before I get started. So I hope, inshallah, that was clear. This series is wrapped up. Going forward, I wanted to, before I got into the fiqh, I'm going to be doing a book that's basically pretty much everyday fiqh. It's fiqh about, as far as I can remember from doing the book, every aspect of your everyday life. A lot of stuff don't apply. there's different cultures and different rulings or whatever. But it's a book. It's called Harimul Lisan. It's a Maliki fiqh book. That title actually means like the prohibitions of the tongue, but it's about the whole. It's about everyday life. That's why I call the book is Everyday Fiqh. I wanted to prove to people the authenticity of our books, of our works, before I even opened up the book, because it is prohibited to take from somebody, take from somewhere, and you don't know where it came from, or you cannot verify where it came from. It is prohibited. You cannot do it. You should not do it. It is in the fiqh lessons. If you're taking your fiqh lessons, it is in there. You cannot do that. So I wanted to prove to y'all our connection, our undisputed connection to the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam via Imam Malik. And we also have the other brothers that's contributing to the platform who belong to the other four madahib. We don't have a Hanafi contributor. If anybody knows a Hanafi contributor, can y'all link us up, please? Inshallah. We got a brother, but he went further, Imam Nadir. He went further in Maliki fiqh than he did Hanafi fiqh. So it'd be nice when you get somebody that went far with the Hanafi fiqh, and we can, provide that. But the Hanafis are everywhere, so everybody know the fiqh of the Hanafis. So they the biggest school. So, but we have on the platform, we have contributors from all of the schools except the Hanafi school. We're gonna be doing basic Hanafi stuff, implying the Hanafi stuff. And I can fill a void too, because I started out Hanafi for the first half of my Islam. So, so I just wanted to prove to you all because now we're going into the teaching phase of this initiative with the brothers from the 18, the Ash'ari and the Athari team. So I just wanted to prove to y'all those sources before we get into these books. The other brothers have already started their books. We got Ustad Salih Abdul Mujid doing Shafi'i AQEEDAH, Shafi'i Belief, and Fiqh on Friday evenings. We have Imam Malik doing he was supposed to tonight, but he worked a lot. We have him doing the Seerah of the Prophet alayhi salam. He comes on Mondays with me. We are also getting ready to get some women's initiatives in. My wife is going to be helping out, inshallah. Me and her and I sit and we learn. So, certain aspects and things that are important to her from a woman's point of view, she's going to be providing that. I think we work on Wednesday for that, inshallah. And like last Monday, we kind of jumped it off. I skipped this and we did Love Talk Live. That's what we call it. We're talking about relationships, fiqh of marriage, fiqh of relationships, how, we can work this thing out according to the Quran and the Sunnah. Love, that's a big thing, a big topic that a lot of us really can't do justice to. So we just got to make dua. And we have fiqh and Aqidah, the Maliki fiqh and Aqidah, the belief system, what we believe. That's on Tuesday evenings on all of our platforms. It's a Tuesday evenings. Inshallah, we're doing the golden book, Aqidah to Tahawiyah. The brother has ijazah in it. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. So all of this certification and who is this and who is that and who is what is this brother does. Imam Nadir. He's Joyce Pro on Facebook. Y'all catch him tomorrow evening, inshallah, inshallah ta'ala. He's going to be going over what Muslims believe. Aqidah to Tahawiyah is the oldest book in Aqidah that every single Muslims agree on. Even the deviant Muslims claim Imam Tahawi. He's an agreed upon Imam. Nobody disagrees on him. This book is absolute factual, no doubts. So we're doing that tomorrow, and he is also doing fiqh, the introductory Maliki fiqh on Sundays. I don't remember which day. What time? I think it's Sunday evenings. I don't know. Just look out for the post. We post the stuff before we do it. Most of the time, the day of, we post when we're going to be doing something. So we just started that initiative. So now y'all have these videos, this true Aqidah the Salaf videos, to prove the connection of these four schools to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And we're getting ready to launch the Hanbali fiqh, I think. We got two brothers that are in the group that are Hanbali. And inshallah, I know we have some people who are interested in the Hanbali fiqh from Imam Ahmad. So stay tuned for that. So inshallah ta'ala, that's what this video was, to prove the connection of the four schools to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So stay tuned. Keep the notifications on about this stuff. Definitely like it, share it, get the news out there, get the spread it out there. The more that knowledge is spread around, the better that we all will be able to learn. So like it and share it. Share, so that we can get the knowledge spread out. Because the Muslims right now, we got a lot of work to do. So share. We ain't trying to get no views and all that stuff. We don't care about that. We're doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm getting ready to go. I see one question. So do you have a general board with programs coming up in one place? Inshallah. We working on it. Inshallah. This is the beginning stages of all of that. But inshallah, we working on it. Y'all can hit any one of us up. Just post a question or whatever. Anything that anybody need to know. I'm 99% sure we can either answer the question or we can have the question answered. If we ourselves don't know it, we definitely connected with individuals who know. And if they don't know, then you don't need to worry about it. That's how I take it. Because I ask my students questions a lot of times, and sometimes I don't get an answer back. I'll say, okay, well, that's something that's not really relevant. But something that's relevant, boom, they come right then and there. So post questions in the group, and any one of the brothers. We have brothers who are and students in all of the schools. We just don't have a Hanafi contributor yet. But as far we got students for all the three, serious students and all the three, like past the intermediate level in all of the schools, alhamdulillah, except for the Hanafi schools. So if y'all have something, inshallah, make dua for us also that this will be easy and that we be sincere and that this thing will be good only for the sake of Allah. Make that dua for us, please. Please make that dua for us, because with this internet stuff, sincerity is not there anymore. It's not there anymore. So make dua that we don't fall into that. We're just trying to help the people, our community, our country. It's in shambles right now. And the only way that we can make things better for ourselves is that we can teach. Get whatever we've learned, while Allah Ta'ala bless us to learn, we share it. And then, like they say, each one reach one, each one teach one. That way we all could, have knowledge and we all could be in a better situation. Because it's all about community at the end of the day. So I'm gone. I love you all for the sake of Allah. If I said anything wrong, does not belong to Allah or His Messenger or Islam or the illustrious shuyukh, the companions. It belongs to me and my mistakes. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله ولا إله إلا الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.